Hi, this is Bri Williams, the Behaviour Explainer, and let's talk about keeping your customers. Now, there are two things I want you to know about customer retention. The first is that it's cheaper to keep a customer than acquire a new one. The second thing I think it's worth contemplating is that it's actually unnatural for your customer to leave you. What do I mean? Well, there's such a thing as status quo bias. It means that as humans, we tend to stick with what we know. That means if your customer is leaving you, well, something must be pretty bad. So what can we do about it? How do we give ourselves the best chance of retaining our customers? I'm going to talk through 4 strategies. Now, before I talk about the 4 strategies, let's get the lay of the land. There are 2 levers to pull when you are seeking to retain your customers. Their motivation, so how they feel about you. I call this the hearts and minds of your customer. And the second lever is their ability, so their capacity or their capability. So how easy or difficult is it to enact this decision? So we've got motivation and we've got ability. We can either enable them or we can impede them. So that's the 2x2 strategy: motivation, ability, impede or enable. So what's our first strategy? It's the most common, and it is, let's increase their motivation to stay with us. Now, if this is our strategy, it relies very heavily on how they feel about us, and that means the relationship is critical. You have to move away from being an anonymous entity, and you have to either bring yourself or your staff really into the frame so that they feel that I'm not dealing with an anonymous organization, I'm dealing with real humans. So things you can do around enhancing this relationship. Well, the first is to always make sure that you're personalizing as much as you can the interaction they're having with you. It can mean small things like using their name and using their name correctly. Instead of dear customer, it's dear Bri. You can also use collective pronouns like we and us when you're talking about things so that they feel invested in the relationship too. It's more like they're in the trenches with you. So when it comes to motivation, when it comes to how they feel about you, this is really the domain of rewards. Now, rewards can either be extrinsic, so external to them. Think about discounts, think about bonus points, think about vouchers. Rewards that are external to their being, but it makes them feel good about doing business with you. An early on-time discount, for instance, for a renewal is a helpful strategy because they feel rewarded and it happens before they even contemplate going to your competitor. So they're extrinsic rewards. You can also use intrinsic rewards. Here we're trying to tap into how they feel about themselves for making this decision. So using language like a smart decision maker like you is sort of ego stroking them and making them feel good about their decision. You can also explore the principle of consistency. In this case, they've expressed a need or a desire to work with you before, and so it would be consistent for them to do it again. So that's the first strategy. It's about motivation and it's about enabling the decision to stick with you. While we're on the topic of motivation, let's talk about strategy number 2. Decreasing their motivation to leave. Now, at first sight, this might seem very similar to increasing their motivation to stay, but there's some psychological nuance here. Increasing their motivation to stay is putting them in a gain mindset where there's some advantage for staying. Decreasing their motivation to leave is using the principle of loss aversion and sunk cost to make them feel like they lose if they don't stay with you. A classic example might be years of membership. You get a discount the longer you've been with us. That makes it more painful, less motivating to leave because you have to give up that discount that you've earned over the course of the relationship. I, for instance, keep renewing my CPA membership because it's just too painful to walk away from all of the study and all of the experience. So I end up renewing. You can also introduce things like exit fees and penalties. Okay, so our first 2 strategies deal with motivation. Motivation's good, but it can fluctuate. You can spend a lot of money getting people very excited about sticking with you, and it can drop away very quickly, which brings us to ability. Ability I describe as the hands and feet of the relationship. It's what they do, not what they think and feel. So strategy number 3 is about increasing their ability to stay with you. Now, sometimes we make it super difficult for our customers to stay with us. You know, it's inflexible terms, it's difficult processing, websites that crash on them. These are all things that interrupt their ability to renew. So having clear calls to action, having dedicated phone numbers, for instance, taking any friction there is out of the renewal process is going to increase their ability to stay with you. Of course, automatic renewal processing, invoice processing, is the clearest example of this. Our 4th strategy when it comes to keeping customers is decreasing their ability to leave. Now, this is pretty dicey territory because if you are deliberately making it difficult for your customer to leave you, well, we're getting into the area of what is known as sludge. You've probably had the experience where you're trying to unsubscribe from something and they make it very, very difficult to either find the link or find the website. You might win in the short term, but you have just completely lost all of the goodwill that you might have had with your customer. Some businesses, for instance, have made the decision to force their customers to call them to cancel, and that's adding friction and also giving that business an opportunity to save the cancellation. As you can tell, I'm not a big fan of using this strategy of decreasing their ability to leave because frankly, it's pretty tacky. It is really exploiting people's laziness, and I really don't think you can have a fulfilling relationship with your customer if you're using those strategies. So there you go, 4 strategies to think through if you are trying to keep your customers. The important thing is these 4 strategies are not mutually exclusive. For instance, you can make it easy for people to renew with you whilst also giving them an increased motivation to do so. So I hope those 4 strategies have given you an idea of what you can do to hold on to your customers. If you like this video, please let me know and subscribe to the channel if you want more behavioural tips like this. I'm Bri Williams. I'll see you again next time.